Hello, this is Don
and Gina
with Focused Healthy Family, and we've come to the close of 2022. This is our first year of doing this podcast, and thought it would be good to do the best of Focused Healthy Family podcast.
Check out the podcast this week. We're sharing one every day, looking back on some of our favorites from the year, some of the interviews we did and the conversations we had. We'd love to know what conversations we can have for the new year. Don and I already have some things that we're planning, people we've interviewed that we'll be sharing.
And today, you have another of our look backs of the best of Focused Healthy Family 2022. And we want to wish you a happy holidays and the hope for a prosperous New Year's in 2023. We hope you enjoy this one.
So life was good. I had an active massage therapy practice, lots of clients. I became a mom. I had just become a mom, and it was, oh my gosh, my husband and I had been on a journey with 4 miscarriages and 3 years in the adoption system. And I was a mom, and we were financially stable, good marriage. So why was I sitting on the deck sobbing uncontrollably, feeling like the world was just crashing in on me, and I didn't know what to do? It was even to the point I was so tired that I was having suicidal thoughts. I'd wake up in the morning, I had a beautiful life, right? So why was I asking myself, would it be easier if I just wasn't here? Well, my husband and I, it was 6 months after we had become a family with 2 toddlers. And I'll tell you, they didn't come with an instruction manual. Still looking for one. They're now teenagers. And I was lost. I was 46 years old. So there is a reason why you actually have children when you're younger. I think it has to do with energy. So that day, my husband came home and I went to the doctor. And the doctor, he changed my life. And he changed my life by the question of, what changes are you going to make? And I looked at him like he just grew 3 more heads. And I'm like thinking, what? Why do I have to make any changes? You just gave me a prescription for the happy pill. Life's going to be good. But then I stopped and I thought about it. And he actually, with that one little question, gave me some control back. He gave me some control and he empowered me. So this started my journey on simple self-care. And simple self-care is all about those little bits of self-care that you can slide into your day without scheduling, and those tiny, tiny changes that you can make every day that build and grow over time, and you're taking care of yourself.
So this is Don and Gina with Focused Healthy Family. And once again, we're doing a podcast, and we're interviewing Rita Garnto. I got to say it right. Sorry, Rita. And she's with Simple Self-Care by Rita. This is podcast number 11.
Part of our self-care series.
And we're going to take just a moment here to get a word from our sponsor.
And then we'll be back to talk more with Rita.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Q Sciences. Don and I discovered that the supplements we were taking and giving to our children were not being absorbed properly. I was very excited when I found Q Sciences. I was impressed with the quality of the products and that they provide maximum absorption. They have a variety of products, including a Q Max product, which is a combination of 3 products, including vitamins, minerals, and a probiotic. They also have hemp oil, a vitamin B12 spray, a sleep spray, and kids products. I've really seen a difference in how these products are improving how I feel, improving my mental health, and I'm happy with the quality of these products and how they're helping our whole family. If you'd like to learn more,
simply go to qsciences.focusedhealthyfamily.com. That's the letter Q, sciences.focusedhealthyfamily.com. Or you can find a link on the front page of the focusedhealthyfamily.com website.
and stop throwing your money away on supplements that don't work and use a quality product like Q Sciences.
Well, we're back. Well, Rita, thank you so much for being here. Looking forward to this because this is our series we're doing on self-care, and you are the guru of self-care.
Oh, thanks, Dawn. Thank you, Gina and Dawn, for inviting me. So I'm looking forward to this.
This is great. And I love your, telling the story of becoming a mom and just that reality of all of a sudden you've got these kids and there's no instruction manual. That's
I do that a lot when I'm working with my clients, especially, mom, we'll be tapping and I will say, and everything was in that manual that came out in the umbilical cord. And then I'll go, oh, wait a minute. There wasn't any manual with that, So yeah, that was a good story. So
thank you. What I also didn't mention was they're 18 months and almost 4. So when we became a family, so, baggage came with that too. So they were little people already. They weren't just babies, right? There was a lot of stuff we had to navigate. We knew we were getting into, we knew there were going to be issues, but oh my gosh, like really issues. So
I can only imagine you kind of jump into the thick of things, when you start with a newborn, they're kind of helpless and you kind of ease into stuff. But yeah, those are some challenging times when they're
and 2 of them, right? So you've got 2 with different needs. And then of course the older one, obviously their life was not very good, so there's sort of, leftovers from that. So trying to deal with the older one and then sort of the younger one who was, easier to love, so to speak, kind of got lost, I think, a little bit because all our energy went to her, the older one. So, but rest assured, they are 2 beautiful teenagers. Other parents, people outside our homes say that they're absolutely wonderful girls, and they are. They're almost 17 and 15. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is hope. So, but they really changed who I am and sort of the trajectory of my life and my journey. So I'm really blessed and humbled. So
when your journey is taking you through, because you were a respiratory therapist, you're a massage therapist, so you've been through quite a journey to get to where you are now. Did all of those things help add to where you got, getting to this simple self-care? Did those things were part of it, I would imagine?
Yeah, absolutely. So just so people understand, I didn't jump around from career to career. I went right from high school. I became a respiratory therapist, and I actually did that for 20 years. I am a science nerd, so I love the why. So the 20 years, that's sort of, I discovered that I'm a healer and I love to help people, and I'm a real relationship person. And so, it was my passion really to help people feel better. And I had the opportunity to work in Canada. I worked in Saudi Arabia for over 4 years. I worked here in the United States. I was on the trauma flight team. So yes, of course, all that added to where I am now. And when I was on the flight team in 1997, we were encouraged to develop seminars that we could go around different hospitals or share with our flight team. And I actually developed my first stress management lecture, like go figure, right, back in 1997.
No.
So, that was sort of, whatever your religious belief, but it's kind of like, I felt like God was kind of like, hinting at what was coming. And so that really gave me the science, the scientific Western view of medicine. And then when I was close to 40, I'm just like, I cannot take all this death and dying. Like I really want to help people before they get to this point. So I became a licensed massage therapist and opened my own private practice and did that for 17 years. And that was really good because, I did some energy work, some Reiki. I learned the science why massage works. So even though some of the stuff is woo-woo, just, some people might think tapping is woo-woo, but there's science behind it.
Yeah.
And so I have to be really careful that I don't start throwing this big word and then this word. And, so I think I'm good at sort of simplifying and connecting the dots. Right. So those 2 careers, I don't think I could be where I am today if I didn't have those 2 careers and all that experience and personal development. And, it was a lot of stress. And I was in Saudi Arabia during the Gulf War. So, I know what stress looks like in me. So I can, it's been really good.
I can relate to that as an occupational therapist. I've always loved the brain. I worked in brain injury in my first.
That's where she met me.
Yeah, that's.
Boom.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's what you tell people.
That was years ago. That was the story. You're getting me off track.
Sorry.
But I also learned Reiki and EFT and the energy work. And you're right, there is so much science behind it. I can relate to what you're saying is this real science? You kind of wonder about it, but understanding it all, it kind of all makes sense together. And I've realized that with working with our kids, our own kids, and their challenges, and then wanting to help other families that, I didn't always realize how much my occupational therapy training influenced the way I parent, and just the knowledge that I have. To me, it's kind of become part of who I am, and it seems like common sense. And then I realize, okay, this is from my training, and I don't realize how much I have.
Well, yeah. So I mean, what you had to be in stress to understand how to deal with it. It's like what we've gone through with the OCD. We had to go through it and be in it, in the mush of it, to really now help others possibly get through it or do things better.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, it can be those things like you talked about, adopting these girls, and all of a sudden having to deal with this. Sometimes it's that impact of the stress that kind of leads us to developing our own self-care. So I'm kind of curious, when the doctor asked you, what are you going to do? What changes are you going to make? Like, what kind of first things that you did back then?
I think the first thing, so I've paid a heavy price for stress overload over the years. So, but in my early 20s, I had back surgery. I had a herniated disc. So I had a lot of chronic lower back pain. So believe it or not, so chronic pain, as you know, is debilitating. And it strips your control, right? You just feel so helpless and feel so hopeless. So I actually started stretching, like doing a runner's stretch with my foot up on the counter, where you lean in and you stretch the one hip flexor of the straight leg.
Yep.
When I brushed my teeth. So whenever, even now when I have a toothbrush in my hand, my leg goes up on the counter. And so that seems maybe silly to some people, but it's such a small thing. But typically, there's so many of us walking around with back problems. Typically your hip flexors, which are, the muscle that will cause like your knee to come up, that's really tight. And if that's too tight, it tilts your pelvis and puts pressure on your lower back, blah, blah, blah. So by stretching, it actually would relieve the aching in my lower back. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, like I hurt less. And so that really became one of the things that I do. I have flaxseed neck warmers. I used to be a bodybuilder and personal trainer way back in the day in my 20s. And so a lot of exercise, I remembered a lot of that stuff too, and the stretching. And so I just started to add little pieces in. But really what I encourage my clients and, the people that come into my workshops and that listen to my presentations is that start with one thing, because I can give you, and in my book, I have a list of all the things that I do. And there's a disclaimer, like before you read this, realize I've been doing this for years, but I want to give you an example of things that I slide in. And so it's really starting with one thing. And I think, did I answer your question, Gina?
Yes. No,
Was
you
there
did.
a question?
No, but
somewhere in there I answered
Were
the
you talking to
question.
us?
I love how when you brush your teeth, you stand there and stretch, because I thought I was the only weird person that stands in the bathroom. For me, it's my hamstrings and I need to stretch because I have sacroiliac and hip issues. And I do that.
You guys talk in such big terms. I can't.
Well, and so, when I started writing the book in 2017, Simple Self-Care Saved Me. And there's a whole chapter on simple little things. And what people also don't realize is getting out of bed the right way. Like, right, Gina?
Oh,
So
yeah. I
if
teach
you
people how to get out of bed.
you jerk up, right? You're straining your neck and your lower back, which 1 or 2 times, okay, not a big deal, but you do that year after year. So, now it's rolling to your side, pushing yourself up, feet planted on the floor, then stand up using your quads. So it's those little things that will add up over time. And then when you've got, oh, okay, now I'm getting up out of bed the right way automatically. Oh, now I can add the brushing my teeth with stretching. Well, I hope you're brushing your teeth already, but stretching while I brush my teeth. So it just sort of builds on itself. And then at night, I'll give myself a knee hug. I call it give yourself a hug, where you bring your bent knees to your chest, and I put my arms behind my knees and pull them as close as I can, and just pause, and then just do a little bit of rocking. And so it massages your tailbone, your sacroiliac joints, and it stretches out your glutes and your hamstrings and gives your back a break. So those little things are just, we know it, but unless someone points it out, then
right. And I like how you say adding it slowly, right? Because I should be doing this, I should be doing that, but starting with one simple thing, I mean, that makes a lot of sense, because there can be a lot of pressure. As a therapist, I know all these things I should be doing, and I see myself not doing them. And rather than beat myself up, having the routine of doing something first thing in the morning, first thing at night.
And that's a really good point, Gina, is that we have these expectations, and not to leave you out, Dawn, but typically we women, we're the caregivers, right? I don't know if it's in our DNA, I don't know what it is, but I work with a lot of women come to my workshops, and they're moms, and they're busy, and they're working, and it's like, oh, I need to take care of everybody else first. So my biggest question is, how can you present your best to anybody, your kids, your husband, your business, your job, your partner, unless you're loving yourself and nurturing yourself with self-care? So I know if I don't sleep and I'm not if I'm not walking, and I'm talking gentle walking, sometimes it's a 10-minute walk. Mm-hmm. I put my crabby pants on, and I am the biggest bee in this house, and everybody is going to pay for it, right? Because mama's not happy. So it's, and even, you can see the dynamics, like when you reply gentler to your children, and you can use a better tone, that sets the tone for them typically too, and your husband. So
exactly. Yeah, we talk about that.
I was going to say, because I was going to ask you that, whether communication plays into what do you give pointers on communication? Because we
run a whole workshops
on communication, and found not only does it change communication, it changes anxiety, it changes behavior. It's so much to it, and I would imagine that also affects physicality too.
So absolutely. So one of the workshops I teach is building up your stress armor. And so, I come in before you can communicate effectively. So let me just explain that. So in that workshop, building up your stress armor, I talk about what the stress response is. Like, we don't know what we don't know. So let's get back to the very beginning. Why do I stress? Why do I have this response? And what exactly is it? So, when your brain thinks that you do not have enough resources, or you're in immediate crisis, your operating system flips over to fight or flight, right? Your sympathetic nervous system's activated. There's the science nerd. And there are a lot of changes that happen in your brain and your body. One of the things that happens is the blood flow changes in your brain when you are feeling stressed, or you're feeling attacked, or that there's a crisis. Literally, the blood flow is diverted from your prefrontal cortex, big word, which really is the executive part of your brain that makes the good decisions. It's the clear thinker. That blood flow is diverted to a more primitive part of your brain. So literally you're fighting your neurobiology when you're pissed. I mean, it's really, right? You are literally not thinking clearly. You can't, because the blood flow is not going where it's supposed to.
Right.
So before you can even communicate, you have to be aware of, okay, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, my stress response is going on. And then taking a step back and going, okay, just pause for a moment. I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to wiggle my toes. I'm going to wiggle my fingers. I'm going to look outside, see how many blooming trees I can see, to allow the operating system to flip to your resting and digesting. So I see a combination workshop here with the three of us. Before you can get to that point of calmly communicating,
Right.
you have to calm this down.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Exactly.
And it only takes 30 seconds. Like 30 seconds, you can flip. And now I start calling the operating system, because everybody understands that, right? We all have, iPhones or Androids or whatever. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, that goes hand in hand with the things we do. I mean, we have 2 kids with OCD and severe anxiety, and when they're in that place, it doesn't matter what age we are, we lose the ability to communicate, to be able to even describe what we're feeling and have the words for it. And I've always, with my kids, it was easier when they were little, doing something physical to kind of help shift the brain.
We used to do wheelbarrow.
Yeah, wheelbarrow.
Burrito. You'd make burritos out of them with a blanket. Roll them up tight.
That was more of a calming
that
thing.
was a sensing, for
But
sensory.
the wheelbarrow was the proprioceptive input is calming to the nervous system, and I would pick them up by their feet and they'd walk on their hands, and in between the movement and everything, it helps the shift in the brain, or just even going outside,
Putting on some music, have a dance party. I've done that before, where I just all of a sudden will blare a good song and we're all like, hey, so yeah, you're right. It's distracting. It's really distracting the brain. I know we've had our oldest girl, daughter has, when she start to get riled up, I'm like, oh, what color are your shorts? What do your shorts feel like? So again, it's that distraction. And I see that as you reassuring your brain you're not in danger. So it's okay to go into resting and digesting.
Yeah.
Those are awesome.
That makes a lot of sense. I actually did that last night. Our youngest was flared up and she's in a bunk bed and there's slats. And I said, tell me how many slats are up there. And she started counting them, because I knew that would kind of help shift things.
I actually had one of the interviews I did on the Invisible Wheelchair podcast, my other podcast. There was a lady, and she did a countdown to bring it down. And she started out, I can't remember the exact order, but it was like, tell me 5 things that you see, and tell me 4 things that you hear. Give me 3 things that you smell. Give me, and she went down to 1, and it shifted everything. I mean, she did it to me on the interview, and I was like, impressed with it. And I've been wanting to try that, and I haven't done it with our own kids, but that, to me, that's another way of bringing that shifting, that,
right. Again, though, like she's talking about, if you're really in a state of anxiety, to even come up with names and things can be challenging.
But as parents, and I tell you, so just talking to you two, I'm like, yeah, when my girls get home, I'm going to deal a little bit different with that one, and I'm going to try this with that one. And I guess one of the biggest things was when we became parents, I thought we were having all these issues because they were adopted, right? And so I started talking to that's a good thing that I'm not afraid to be vulnerable and sort of let some of my dirty laundry hang out, because I'm like, I need help.
Mm-hmm.
I started talking to my neighbors, the moms, and they're like, oh no, our kids do the same thing. And I'm like, what, you too? And with that urge, to one neighbor in particular, gosh, I love her. I'm like, some days I just want to rip her arm off, and hit her with it, right? And she shared something that's very similar along those lines, and I'm like, okay, I'm not a bad mom.
Mhm.
I'm not homicidal. I'm feeling normal things. And so the more I talked, the more there were women that were hiding their stuff in their, behind closed doors because they thought they were not good moms. And so it takes a village, and I so believe in it. We have to be a community sharing and supporting one another. Now, not everybody is going to fit into your community, right? Those people that don't get it, or, whatever. But to find those people that are on the same, plane, and not afraid to ask for help. I mean, I will ask for help in a heartbeat. So either that or I'll take a nap.
One of the things because I have a lot of parents that come to me, and they give me that same line, I'm a terrible parent, because of what they've done in their past, or what they feel like they've done now with their kids. And one of the things I try to point out to them is that these things that they do, these things that they think are bad, are really lessons for the kids on how not to do it, or how, I think it gives confidence to kids to see a parent screw up and be able to get through it, resolve it maybe, because I think, down the road someday, maybe when the parents aren't even there, they may run into the same kind of situation or something similar. And then they're able to say to themselves, you know what, this is tough. I don't like this, but you know what, mom made it through it. Dad made it through it. And so it gives them confidence to want to be able to handle it, that they can handle it themselves then. So I like to let's take that bad stuff idea away, and let's make it, these were lessons. And sometimes we have to do these. We just talked about through your career, you had to go through that stuff. You had to go through the stress to know how to deal with it and how to help others with it.
Mhm.
Kids have to learn. That's how kids learn, I think.
Yeah, I say that all the time.
But that's also like, we have to learn too,
Yeah.
I turn 60 next year. I certainly don't, I like to think I don't act my age. And I hope I never do. So
He's got you beat.
but it's a process. Like, I am still learning. Like, when I was a teen, I thought, oh my gosh, when I turned 21, bing, I was an adult and I knew everything, right? And now I'm here at almost 59, and I'm still learning. So we really need, and I had this conversation with my oldest yesterday. I said, none of us are perfect, and you have to realize that we're all doing the best that we can with what we had at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there were some things that in my childhood, a great family, there were some choices my mom made with maybe information she shared, or the fact she made all my decisions for me into my 30s and enabled me, right? But I still love her. And she did the best she could, how she knew what to do with what she had. And it's that whole grace and acceptance. It's like, oh my gosh, stop beating yourself up.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, I screwed up today. Okay, next time this happens, I'm going to try to approach it a little bit different. Right. And, pat yourself on the back. This parenting thing, OMG, like and nowadays,
yeah, it's challenging. And like you said, us taking care of ourselves, us making mistakes, and our kids seeing not only mistakes, but seeing like, okay, I didn't like how that turned out. I'm going to do this differently. So modeling and them seeing you go through it and making your changes is teaching them self-care.
Well, I call it contrast. We need contrast in our life to understand life. We need to, we don't know, we can't really know what we like desire or want until we know what we don't want. I talk about like going through the dating process. To me, the dating process is this matter of you date somebody and you kind of have a pro and con list that you start making. Oh, I like this about her. I don't like this about her. And that one, now that too many cons on that one, next. And pretty soon you weed that down to when you find the pro list and you find somebody that fits the pro list pretty much. But no,
I guess that would be you, Gina.
And Don was 34 when he met me, so he had a lot of practice
I
with
stretched
dating.
it out.
Hey, I was 37 when I met Neil. And we've been together. So that's 21 years ago we met, and we've been married for almost 19. So, and it's not perfect. And I think a danger with kids too is that, I can get up on stage in front of lots of people and talk. I've written a book, I'm likable, not everybody likes me, but I'm, for the most part, I'm likable. Yes. Like my kids think, oh, mom, you're famous. And the kids can put you up on a pedestal thinking, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to be like that? Right, and so I make sure that I apologize. Like if I've been short or been a bit of a B, later I'll say, I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have been so harsh. I'm feeling a little stressed or I'm not feeling well. It's not an excuse, but and I will try better. Mm-hmm. And so letting them see that you're, like you said, Dawn, that you're real. Like, now my girls are rolling their eyes when I share, well, in high school, I did some of the same thing, and they're like, oh, mom. Right. But I want them to know I screwed up a lot, right. And it took a lot of work to get here. I was not born great, I was born great, but like it's a
you're right. It's a process, and for them to see your journey and to have some insight into that, just as a testament to what you're talking about. Our oldest is 24 and he's lived on his own for a couple of years now, and there's something we were doing, something around COVID, and his girlfriend was anxious about it, and I said something I probably shouldn't had. And he said to me, it's okay, mom, it's in the past. And, I was like rehashing what I did. And he's like, it's in the past, and I'm like, wow, things that we taught him. It was exciting. It helps, when you have a grown child, it gives you confidence to see that the things we do. And I made a lot of mistakes with him. I tell him he was my practice kid, my firstborn. And I just,
we made a lot of mistakes.
Saw the mistakes we made, but they learn from that, right? They're
So I guess,
thank you for sharing that. I always appreciate when parents share older kids. It's like really they'll appreciate it in a few years, and it's like if I can just get through the few years. So I'm ready. I would really, if they could, I'd move both of them out right now. And not that I don't love them. Don't get me wrong. But they're so anxious to see what life's all about. And I want to be grown up, and I want to make my decisions, and I want to do what I want to do when I do. Why do I have to make my bed? And it's like, I'd really like you to go out there. And I even thought about at some point creating like a summer camp, like for a month, where you'd send your kids and they got, so much, it could be play money or whatever. And that for a month they had to live on their own and figure it out.
Right. There was a whole program in Charlotte. Oh gosh, it wasn't a camp, but it was a
week of you went.
A week, like a life skills class they went to, and they all got jobs, and there was a mayor, and they had to kind of run the town. I can't think of what that was called, but my oldest did that. So
they taught him about checking
10 years ago. Yeah. So it was kind of a real life experience demonstration.
And then we, our middle child, did it last summer. Had that experience. A friend of hers got an internship
up in Raleigh,
and my daughter, just real quickly, she's been going up to Raleigh with my sister-in-law,
since she was 14,
with dog training and working up there with her, and so she took on the job with my sister-in-law and moved up there for like 3 months.
Right, the two of them, they were 19.
And oh my gosh, was it a eye-opening experience for her?
They rented an apartment, and she took the dogs with her because dogs are her life. So she had our 2 dogs to take care of. Her friend that she lived with had their cat, and
she had to do things she had never had to do, and it was a great experience for her. But because the car broke, well, she had an accident when she was up there. The car broke down when she was up there, and
we're 3 hours away, so it wasn't.
It was her having to handle things and being the child that has OCD. Not that she's managing that, but that was an experience that really helped her.
And yet, she knew it was temporary. It was 3 months. So it was kind of like a trial, like, can I really do this? But I love your idea of the camp, because especially when they're younger teens and mid-teens, they want that independence, right? But they're really not ready for it. Their brain's not finished developing.
But they want to be. And then there's a lot of headbutting here at home. So,
yeah.
And my oldest daughter, she suffers from anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
I suffer from anxiety as well. I've had mild depression in the past, and the reason, I'm starting to make this confession in my workshops and my presentations that I do not deal well with stress. I get stressed very easily. So I have to walk the walk. I talk the talk. I'm always looking for a better way. I want to make tomorrow, a little bit better, a little calmer, a little whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an ongoing process. And I wanted to go back, Gina, too. You said, it has to be simple, right? We need to set ourselves up for success. So it's about picking one thing to start with, because then at the end of the day, it's like, yay, me, I did it. So I do teach a master class as well. And I always, at the end of, it's a 6-week program. And hopefully I'll start it up again next year. So at the end of each session, we take turns to go around and say, okay, what is your goal? Like, what one thing do you pick to do the next week? And then we check in, the following session. I don't know how many times I've had, and it's typically a woman, not to throw us under the bus. I'm going to work out 2 hours every day. I'm going to give up sugar. I'm only going to eat green food. I'm going to sleep 10 hours a day. And I'm going to, I'm not going to yell at my kids anymore.
Right.
Okay. I'm exaggerating, but seriously, right? So day one, you're like, yeah, I can do this. And day two, you're like, and day three, you're like, screw this. Right. So you've just set yourself up for failure by picking like 5 things to do. Pick one.
Right.
Pick one.
And those are a lot, but I've done that same thing. And
well, even though one is tough, just one can be tough, just to stay with it, because mentally you fight against it, or your mind's not used to that, and it wants to resist. So yeah.
And the simple aspect of it, I like how you're talking about that, not just like, oh, I'm going to exercise now, but because that to me is even huge, right? I'm going to stretch. I'm going to do this one stretch while I brush my teeth, or I'm going to, walk for 10 minutes, I love the simple idea that you're bringing into the component.
So even, a few more steps. So as far as the exercising, so I'm upstairs and the girls' bathroom is next door, which most of the time I don't want to go in there without my hazmat suit, but none besides that. I will walk downstairs and use one of the bathrooms downstairs. So that's a few extra steps, right? So I'm going 2 flights down, 2 flights up. Every time I'm getting some tea or some water, or if I drink enough water, I'm going to the bathroom all the time. So it's, and if you get 100 extra steps every day, you're looking at about 18 miles a year extra of movement. So even parking a little bit further away from the grocery store, like, just a few car parks, like slots down, like those simple things that really are a no-brainer, but just add a little bit. And over time, it will make a difference. And having the confidence that, over time, it's going to make a difference. So.
Yeah. And I love smartphones for that reason, because it track your steps, and it, it can push me like, oh, if I just walk 500 more steps, I'll make it to 4,000 or whatever, the number is. It's a nice little feedback, I guess, so to say. So tell us a little bit more about your book that you wrote.
So it's called Simple Self-Care Save Me. It's available on Amazon. I'm just going to hold up a copy, but I guess I don't need to because it's a podcast.
It looks lovely.
Someday.
Thank you. It's like, just imagine. So it's written the way I talk. Like that's how I write, is sort of like I'm having a conversation with you. And it really, it's written for sort of for women, like, hey, ladies, get your big girl panties on. But I have had a lot of men read it as well. And one in particular, I met him through my dad, and he got a big chuckle out of the big girl panties. So when I, see him, he's like, yeah, I got my big girl panties on, Rita. So, I've had men in their 70s read it, and men of all ages in between. So I think it's a good read for everyone. I am hoping to start on the second edition this summer. And what I'd like to add then is the things that I've learned in the last 5 years, especially, with COVID and all that elements that's added, but also survey men and get more opinion, how men relate with stress, and to include some things in there. But this book, it talks about, your different nervous systems, how it all came about, explaining the stress response. And then there's a whole chapter on simple things you can just add in. And then it has kind of walks you through, okay, how do I find my one thing? And then there's just a few steps that, you brain dump all the things you like to do, and then you narrow that down, and then you end up picking one. So, I've had really good feedback, and it's international: Australia, South Africa, Germany, Sweden,
Wonderful,
Canada. So,
I've got to check that out. And we're doing our podcast twice a month, but we're going to be adding to it. And the one thing I want to add is kind of book reviews, because one thing we do as parent coaches is bringing other resources to parents. And so I'll make sure that's
on the book list.
But where I kind of
thank you, I appreciate that. So
reading a book, because there's a book in my head, and in blogs I've written, it just hasn't come to fruition yet. It's something I'm a writer too, and it's something I'm working towards. But is there?
Well, Rita, we really appreciate you taking this time today. There's a lot of good information here.
And if people want to learn more about you and what you do, where can they find out more?
Well, my website is simpleselfcare.net. And there's a contact form on there. Rita@simpleselfcare.net is my email address. Feel free to email me. I do have a free weekly text self-care club. So every Tuesday morning you receive just a self-care little baby blog. And if anyone's interested in joining that, you text the word chocolates with an S to 71441. There's a story behind the chocolate. I love dark chocolate, but chocolates 71441, and then you'll automatically get on the list. And every Tuesday morning, you'll get a text. And if you want, you can stop at any time. And
I love that. I'm going to have to check that out, because I love things like that. And we're going to have to interview again in the future, because I want to hear your story about chocolates.
Anytime, Gina. I'll bring the chocolate.
Yeah. So, well, Rita, again, it's been wonderful to talk to you.
Yes,
and
thank you so much
we appreciate you
here.
being on.
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation, and this has been a lot of fun. And you two inspire me. So keep on doing what you're doing, and keep helping families. And yeah, life's tough. Come on, life's a struggle.
Thanks.
Struggle is real.
So that's our podcast for today. We hope you've enjoyed it. We'd love to hear from you. Make sure to leave us a comment. If you'd like what you've heard today, or you'd like to learn more about us, and of course about Rita, or you want to join our next workshop or Rita's next workshop, you can find out more at www.focusedhealthyfamily.com, or you can follow us on Facebook at Focused Healthy Family.
And we'll put some notes in about Rita's information.
About Rita's stuff, yeah. And remember, how you speak to your children shapes their future.